dear ones. It's time for another couple of chapters of the Enchanted Wood. And if you remember where we'd got to, they were considering going to the land of take what you want. Let's find out what happens. So this is chapter 18 now. The next day was very fine. The children helped their mother to clean the whole house, and Joe proudly brought in some fine green beans and lettuces from the garden, which he had grown himself. Mother was pleased. "You can go off and play after lunch if you like," she said. "You have been very good today." The children looked at each other in glee. Just what they had hoped for. Good. "Come on," said Joe after lunch. "We won't waste any time." "What about something to drink?" said Beth. "Shouldn't we take some lemonade with us?" "I think we can get lemonade all right from the land of take what you want," said Joe with a grin. So they all ran off, waving to Mother as they went. They were soon in the enchanted wood, hearing the trees whispering secretly to one another. Wisha, wisha, wisha. They ran through the bushes and trees to the faraway tree, and up they went. When they passed the window of the angry pixie, Joe peeped in, just for fun. But he was sorry he did, for the angry pixie was there, and he threw a bowl of cold soup all over poor Joe. "Oh," said Joe in dismay, as he saw his shirt all splashed with soup. "You wicked pixie." The angry pixie went off into peals of delighted laughter and banged his window shut. "Pooh! You do smell of onions now, Joe," said Beth, wrinkling up her nose. "I hope the smell soon wears off." Joe wiped himself down with his handkerchief. He said to himself that one day he would pay the angry pixie back. "Come on," said Franny impatiently. "We'll never get there." They passed the barn owl's door and saw him sitting inside, fast asleep. They came to Silky's little yellow door too, but she wasn't in. There was a note pinned on her door which said, "Out. Back soon." "She must be with Moonface," said Joe. "Now just look out for Dame Washerlock's water, everyone." It was a good thing he reminded them, for not long after that, a fine waterfall of soapy suds came pouring down. Franny screamed and dodged. So did Beth. Joe got some on his shirt, and he was very cross. "Never mind," said Franny with a giggle. "It will wash off some of the onion soup, Joe." They went on up and came to Mr. What's-his-name's. He was, as usual, sitting in a deck chair, fast asleep with his mouth open. And beside him, also fast asleep, was the old saucepan man, looking most uncomfortable, draped round as usual with saucepans and kettles. "Don't wake them," whispered Joe. "We'd better not stop and talk." So they crept by them. But just as they had got up to the next branch, the saucepan man woke up. He sniffed hard and jabbed Mr. What's-his-name. "What's the matter? What's the matter?" said his friend. "Can you smell onions?" asked the saucepan man. "I distinctly smell them." "Do you suppose the faraway tree is growing onions anywhere near us today? I love onion soup." Joe and the girls laughed till they cried. "It's the onion soup on your shirt that the saucepan man smelt," said Beth. "My goodness, they'll spend all the afternoon looking for onions growing on the faraway tree." They left the two funny old men and went climbing up, and they got nicely caught by Dame Washerlock's second lot of washing. She was doing a great deal of washing that day, and she emptied a big wash tub down just as the three children were nearly underneath. Slishy, sloshy, slishy, sloshy. The water came pouring down and soaked all the children. They gasped and shook themselves like dogs. "Quick," said Joe. "We will go as fast as we can to Moonface's house and borrow some towels from him. This is dreadful." They arrived at Moonface's at last. Old Moonface and Silky rushed out to hug them. But when they saw how dripping wet the children were, they stopped in surprise. "Is it raining?" said Moonface. "Have you had a bath in your clothes?" asked Silky. "No, it's just Dame Washerlock's water as usual," said Joe crossly. We dodged the first lot, but didn't manage to dodge the second lot. Can you lend us some towels?" Moonface grinned and poured out some towels out of his curved cupboard. As the children rubbed themselves down, Moonface told them all about the land of Take What You Want. "It's a marvellous land," he said. "You are allowed to wander all over it and take whatever you want without paying a penny. Everyone goes there if they can. Do come and visit it with me and Silky." "Is it quite safe?" asked Joe, rubbing his hair dry. "Oh yes," said Silky. "The only thing is, we must be careful not to stay there too long in case it leaves the faraway tree and we can't get down. But Moonface says he will sit by the ladder and give a loud whistle if he sees any sign of the land moving away." "Good," said Joe. "Well, there are plenty of things we want, so let's go now, shall we?" They all climbed up to the topmost branch to the great white cloud. The ladder led through the hole as usual to the land above. One by one they climbed it and stood in the strange country above the magic cloud. It was indeed strange. It was simply crowded with things and people. It was quite difficult to move about. Animals of all kinds wandered here and there. Sacks of all sorts of things, from gold to potatoes, stood about. Stores of the most wonderful vegetables and fruit were everywhere, and even such things as chairs and tables were to be found, waiting for anyone to take them. "Good gracious," said Joe, "can we really take anything we want?" Just getting comfy. "Anything," said Moonface, settling himself down by the ladder in the cloud. "Look at those gnomes over there. They mean to take all the gold they can find." There's some of the gnomes there carrying their sacks of gold. The children looked where Moonface was pointing. Sure enough, there were 4 gnomes hauling at all the sacks of gold in sight. One by one they staggered off to the ladder with them and disappeared down to the faraway tree. Other fairy folk hunted for the different things they wanted: dresses, coats, shoes, singing birds, pictures, all kinds of things. As soon as they had found what they were looking for, they rushed off to the ladder in glee and slipped down it. Moonface found it fun to watch them. The others wandered off, looking at everything in surprise. "Do you want a nice fat lion, Joe?" asked Silky, as a large lion wandered by and licked Silky's hand. "No, thank you," said Joe at once. "Well, what about a giraffe?" said Silky. "I believe they make fine pets." "You believe wrong then," said Beth, as a tall giraffe galloped past like a giant rocking horse. "Nobody in their senses would want to keep a giraffe for a pet." "Oh, look!" cried Franny as she came to a shop in which stood a great many large and beautiful clocks. "Do let's take a clock back home." "No, thank you," said Joe. "We know what we want and we'll take that and nothing else." "I think I should like a clock," said Silky, as she picked up a small clock with a very nice smiley face. It had 2 feet underneath, which wiggled hard as Silky picked up the clock. "It wants to walk," said Beth with a scream of laughter. "Oh, do let it, Silky. I've never seen a clock walk before." Silky put the clock down and it trotted beside them on its big flat feet. The children thought it was the funniest thing they had ever seen. Silky was very pleased with her new clock. It was the kind that chimed every hour, on the hour, and sometimes in between too. And it had to be wound up with a key every night to keep it ticking. "Just what I've always wanted," she said. "I shall keep it at the back of my room." "You don't suppose it will stay there, do you, Silky?" asked Beth. "It will wander round and about and poke its nose into everything you're doing. And if it doesn't like you, it will run away." "Ding dong," said the clock suddenly in a clear voice, making them all jump. It stopped walking when it chimed, but it ran after the children and Silky again at once. It was really a most extraordinary clock. Now we really must look for what we want, said Joe. Are those hens over there, Beth? Yes, they are, said Beth. Good. Come along and we'll get them. Oh, this is really a lovely land. I am glad we came. What fun it will be getting everything we want. I do wonder what Mother will say when we get home. Okay. I'm going to take a little break now, and then we're going to carry on with the next chapter, which is called Moonface Gets Into a Fix, but it's all while they're in the land of take what you want. Okay, back in a jiffy. Okay, ready for the next chapter. So this is chapter, let me see, that was 18. So this is chapter 19. Moonface Gets Into a Fix. The children went over to the hens that Joe had seen. They were lovely ones, but of very peculiar colour, for their wings were pale green and the rest of their feathers were buttercup yellow. They had funny high voices and were very friendly indeed, for they came to press themselves round the children's legs like cats. Do you suppose Mother would like hens this colour? Asked Joe doubtfully. I don't see why not, said Beth. I think they are very pretty. The thing is, do they lay good eggs? One of the hens at once laid an egg. It was large and quite an ordinary colour. Beth was pleased. There you are, she said. If they lay eggs as big as this one, Mother will be very pleased. How many hens are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I wonder how we could take them all. Oh, they'll follow you, said Silky. Just like my clock follows me. Tell them you want them and they'll come. We want you to come with us, hens, said Joe at once, and the 7 green-wigged birds came over to him and lined up in a row to follow the children. It was really very funny. Well, that's our hens found, said Beth, pleased. Now for the goat and the shovel. They wandered along, looking at everything. It didn't matter what anyone wanted, they were sure to find it sooner or later. There were boats there, all kinds of dogs, shopping baskets, rings, toys, work baskets, and even such small things as thimbles. It's the strangest land I ever saw, said Joe. We look pretty strange too, said Franny, giggling, as she looked around and saw the 7 hens and the big clock paddling along behind them. Oh, look, there's the dearest, prettiest white goat I ever saw. Do let's take her. Sure enough, not far off was a lovely white nanny goat with soft brown eyes and perky ears. She looked quite ordinary, except for 2 blue spots by her tail. Little white goat, come with us, cried Franny, and the goat trotted up at once. It took its place behind the hens, but it didn't seem to like the clock, which bumped into it every now and again, just to tease it. Don't do that, clock, said Silky. I hope your clock won't be a nuisance, said Beth. I think it likes acting silly. Now for the garden shovel, said Joe, as he suddenly saw a fine, strong shovel standing up against a fence with some other garden tools. What about this one? Girls, this looks strong enough for Father, doesn't it? He took hold of it and jabbed it into the ground. It was just the right sort. Joe put it over his shoulder and the 4 of them grinned happily at each other. We've got everything we want, said Joe. Come on, we'll go back to old Moonface and then we'll take some cakes to eat at home. So, followed by the 7 hens, the white goat and the clock, the 4 of them made their way back to where they had left Moonface. But he wasn't sitting where they had left him. He was pulling at a lovely rug which was hanging from a tree. It was perfectly round, with a hole in the middle. Hello, hello, yelled Moonface as he saw them. Look what I've got! Just what I've always wanted for my round tree room. A round rug with a hole in the middle where the slippery slip begins. wonderful. But Moonface, you said you'd watch to see that the land of Take What You Want kept by the faraway tree all right, didn't you? Said Silky anxiously. Where is the hole that leads down to the tree? Oh, it's over there somewhere, said Moonface, draping the rug round him and staggering off. Come on, we're sure to find it. You never guess what? They didn't. It had gone, for the land of Take What You Want had moved away from the faraway tree. Moonface, that's very bad of you, said Joe anxiously. You did promise. Moonface looked worried and pale. He hunted about for the hole, but there was no hole to be seen. He began to shake with fright. I've got you all in a terrible fix, he said in a trembling voice. Here we are, stuck in a land where there's everything we want, and the only thing we want is to get away. Everyone looked upset. This was just too bad. I feel cross with you, Moonface, said Joe in a stern voice. You said you'd keep guard and you didn't. I don't think you are much of a friend. And I am ashamed of you too, Moonface, said Silky, who had tears in her eyes. We'll find someone to help us, said Moonface gloomily, and they all set off, followed by their hens, their goat, and the clock, which kept striking 4 o'clock. Nobody knew why. But now they found a very curious thing. There didn't seem to be anyone at all in the land of Take What You Want. All the gnomes, the pixies, and the elves had gone. They must have known the land was going to move off, said Moonface with a groan. And they all slipped down the ladder in time. Oh, why did I leave it? They wandered all over the land, which was not really very large, but was more crowded with things and animals than anywhere they had ever seen. I can't think what to do, said Silky. It's true, there is everything here we want. We shan't starve, but it isn't the sort of place we want to live in forever. They walked here and there, and suddenly they came to something they hadn't noticed before. It was a large and shining aeroplane, the kind that was open-topped so that you could see all around them when you sat inside. There's a picture of the aeroplane there. Ooh, said Joe, his eyes gleaming. Look at that. How I wish I could fly an aeroplane. Can you fly one, Moonface? Moonface shook his head. Silky shook hers too. That's no good then, said Joe with a sigh. I thought we might fly away from this land in the airplane. He climbed into the aeroplane and had a good look at it. There were 5 handles there. One had a label on it that said up. Another had a label that said down. A third had one that said straight on. And a fourth and the 5th to the right and to the left. Joe stared at the handles in excitement. I believe I could fly this aeroplane, he said. I do believe I could. It looks quite easy. No, Joe, don't, said Beth in alarm. But Joe had pressed the handle labelled up, and before anyone could say another word, the shining aeroplane had risen upwards with Joe, leaving the others staring open-mouthed on the ground below. Now Joe's gone, said Franny, and burst into tears. The aeroplane rose up and up. It circled round when Joe pressed the handle labelled to the right. It flew straight on when he pressed the 3rd handle. And it flew down when he pressed the down handle. It was just as easy as that. Joe flew neatly down to the ground and landed not far away from the others. They rushed to him, shouting and laughing. Joe, Joe, did you really fly it yourself? Well, you saw me, said Joe, beaming at everyone and feeling tremendously proud. It's quite easy. Get in, everyone, and we'll fly off. Maybe we'll come to somewhere that Moonface knows, if we fly long enough. They all got in. Beth packed the 7 squawking hens at the back and sat the white goat on her knee. The shovel went on the floor. The clock made a nuisance of itself because it wouldn't stay where it was put, but kept climbing on everybody's feet to look out of the window. Silky began to wish she hadn't brought it. "Ready?" asked Joe, pressing the handle marked up. And up they went. What a lovely feeling it was. They really couldn't help feeling excited. Silky's clock got terribly excited too. It chimed 29 without stopping. "I shan't wind you up tonight if you don't keep quiet," said Silky suddenly, and that finished the clock. It lay down in a corner and didn't say another ding or another dong. "Where are we off to, I wonder?" said Beth. But nobody knew. Oh, the next couple of chapters are so exciting. I can't wait to read them to you. But that'll be on the next video for another day. So those 2 chapters, there will be some questions on the website. So have a look at those, enjoy, and I shall see you all again tomorrow. Bye for now.